Philosophies Revived.
Have you ever woken up in the morning and before you even get out of bed, the chatter in your mind has already started? Why did I say that yesterday? What if I mess up today? It's as if there's an invisible critic living rent-free in your head. And the crazy part? It feels like it's you. This relentless inner voice has a way of narrating every moment of your life, critiquing your every move and predicting the worst possible outcomes. But let me ask you something. Has this voice ever helped you? Has it ever solved your problems or made your life better? Or is it just keeping you stuck in a loop of overthinking and self-doubt? Now imagine this. What if you could simply hit the mute button on this voice? What if, for once, there was complete silence in your mind? No judgment, no overthinking, no spiraling thoughts, just peace. Sounds impossible, right? But it's not. In fact, when you stop engaging with this voice, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see the world and yourself in a completely different way. It's like turning off a blaring radio and hearing the gentle hum of life for the first time. Most of us go through life without ever questioning this inner dialogue. We assume it's part of who we are, that it's permanent and inescapable. But what if I told you this voice is not you? What if it's just a habit, like biting your nails or scrolling mindlessly through your phone? The moment you start to see it for what it really is, you gain the power to step away from it. And in that silence, in that space, something truly magical happens. The shift begins. Are you ready to explore what's possible? The constant chatter, a lifetime of noise. Have you ever stopped to really listen to the voice in your head? Not just hear it, but listen. It's like a never-ending monologue playing on a loop. You can't do that, it says. You're not good enough. Don't even try. It's exhausting, isn't it? Like carrying around a radio that you can't turn off. And the worst part? It's not even original. Most of what it says comes from things you've picked up along the way: comments from a teacher who doubted you, criticism from a friend, or even random fears that have no basis in reality. This voice doesn't stop, no matter what you're doing. When you're brushing your teeth, it's replaying awkward moments from years ago. When you're in a meeting, it's predicting all the ways you'll fail. And when you're trying to fall asleep, it's louder than ever, pulling you into a spiral of what-ifs. And why did I? It's like a hyperactive tour guide, pointing out every flaw, every mistake, and every potential disaster. But here's the thing, just because it's loud doesn't mean it's right. Think about how many times this voice has been wrong. It told you that you'd mess up that presentation, but you nailed it. It told you people wouldn't like you, but they did. It told you things would go horribly wrong, and they didn't. This voice isn't some wise mentor. It's more like a broken record, stuck on the same negative tune. The real question is, why do we believe it? Why do we let this voice dictate our lives? The first step to freedom is realizing that this chatter isn't you. It's just noise. And once you start to see it for what it is, you can begin to turn down the volume and reclaim your peace. The illusion of control, breaking the spell. The voice in your head wants you to believe it's in control. It whispers, or sometimes shouts, that without it, your life would fall apart. I'm just trying to help you, it insists. I'm protecting you. But is it really? Or is it just keeping you stuck? Think about it. If this inner dialogue were truly helpful, wouldn't your life feel lighter? Wouldn't you be less anxious, less stressed, and more confident? Instead, it feels like dragging around a ball and chain, an endless stream of judgments, criticisms, and fears that weigh you down. Here's the hard truth. This voice doesn't give you control. It takes it away. Imagine you're trying to enjoy a movie, but someone keeps whispering in your ear, pointing out every flaw in the plot, every mistake the characters make. How can you focus on the story when you're constantly being interrupted? That's what your inner voice does to your life. It's not helping you, it's distracting you from living fully. The irony is that the more we listen to this voice, the more out of control we feel. It convinces us to overthink every decision, to replay every mistake, to worry about things that haven't even happened yet. It's like being stuck in quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. But here's the good news. You don't have to fight this voice to free yourself from it. In fact, fighting only gives it more power. Instead, you can start by simply noticing it. Realize that it's just a voice, just a stream of thoughts, not facts, not reality. And the moment you stop engaging with it, you begin to take your power back. True control comes not from silencing the voice, but from seeing it for what it is, an illusion. The power of silence, finding clarity in the stillness. Silence. It's something most of us rarely experience. Our lives are filled with noise, conversations, notifications, traffic, and of course, the endless chatter in our minds. But what if you could find a moment of pure stillness? What if, for just a little while, the voice in your head went quiet? Can you imagine how peaceful, how liberating that would feel? Think of your mind like a snow globe. When you shake it, the snow swirls everywhere, making it hard to see anything clearly. That's what it's like when your thoughts are running wild. But when you let the snow settle, when you stop engaging with the chatter, everything becomes clear. You see the world as it is, not as your inner critic paints it. Silence isn't just peaceful, it's powerful. In the stillness, you begin to notice things you've never seen before. The sound of birds chirping, the feeling of the sun on your skin, the gentle rhythm of your own breath. These moments might seem small, but they're profound. They remind you that life isn't happening in your head, it's happening here, in the present moment. This silence is where the shift begins. It's where you start to reconnect with your true self, the part of you that exists beyond the noise. You realize that you don't need to fix the voice or argue with it. You just need to stop feeding it your attention. Let it talk if it wants to. You don't have to listen. In this space of silence, clarity emerges. You see what truly matters. You feel a sense of peace that isn't dependent on external circumstances. And most importantly, you realize that this stillness, this freedom, has been within you all along. You just needed to stop and listen. The shift happens here, the moment of realization. The shift doesn't come with a loud bang or fireworks. It sneaks up on you quietly and subtly, like the first rays of sunlight breaking through the darkness. It happens the moment you realize something profound. You are not the voice in your head. You are the one listening to it. And once you truly understand this, everything changes. It's like stepping out of a chaotic storm into a peaceful, sunlit field. The noise is still there in the distance, but it no longer consumes you. You've found a space where you can breathe. When this shift happens, something extraordinary begins to unfold. You stop reacting to every thought, every judgment, every fear that crosses your mind. Instead, you observe them, like watching leaves float down a stream. You start to notice patterns, how the voice always predicts disaster or clings to old wounds. But now, instead of believing it, you smile knowingly. Ah, there it is again, you think, but you don't get caught up in its stories. In this space of silence, your true self begins to emerge. It's like peeling back layers of an onion to reveal the vibrant, authentic core beneath. You realize you're not defined by your fears or mistakes. You're not the sum of your achievements or failures. You're something much greater, much deeper, pure awareness, pure presence. And here's the best part. In this state, life becomes lighter. The heavy weight of self-judgment lifts, and you start to experience moments of genuine peace and joy. You find yourself laughing more, worrying less, and noticing the beauty in the simplest things. This is the shift, a transformation that doesn't come from trying harder or doing more, but from letting go of the noise and simply being. Once you've tasted this freedom, you'll never want to go back. Breaking free from the inner critic, disarming the voice. The inner critic is like a persistent heckler at a comedy show always interrupting, always pointing out flaws. But here's the thing about hecklers. They only have power if the comedian reacts to them. The same goes for your inner voice. It thrives on your attention, on your willingness to engage with its negative commentary. But what happens when you stop playing along? When you simply notice it without responding? That's when you take away its power. This doesn't mean you have to silence the voice entirely. After all, it's just doing what it's been conditioned to do. It's like an overprotective friend who warns you about every possible danger, even imaginary ones. The key is to see it for what it really is, a collection of old scripts, outdated beliefs, and fears that no longer serve you. Start by becoming aware of the voice. The next time it says, "You're not good enough," don't argue with it. Instead, take a step back and observe. There's that thought again, you might say to yourself. This simple act of noticing creates space between you and the voice. And in that space, something remarkable happens. You realize you don't have to believe everything it says. Think of the inner critic like a radio playing in the background. You don't have to turn it off. You just stop tuning in. Let it ramble on if it wants to. You've got better things to focus on, like living your life fully and authentically. Over time, as you practice this, you'll notice something amazing. The voice becomes quieter. It doesn't disappear entirely. It's still there, like faint static, but it no longer controls you. You've broken free from its grip. And in that freedom, you find a sense of peace and empowerment that changes everything. The gift of presence, living in the now. Think about the last time you truly felt present. Maybe it was watching a sunset, holding a loved one's hand, or listening to your favorite song. In those moments, time seemed to stand still. The past didn't matter, and the future wasn't a concern. You were simply there, fully immersed in the now. That's the gift of presence, and it's one of the most powerful experiences we can have. But here's the challenge. The voice in your head constantly pulls you away from the present. It drags you into the past, replaying old mistakes, or thrusts you into the future, worrying about things that may never happen. Meanwhile, the present moment, the only place where life actually happens, slips away unnoticed. When you stop engaging with the inner chatter, the present moment comes alive. Suddenly, you notice things you've overlooked for years. The way sunlight filters through the trees, the sound of your own breath, the simple joy of being alive. It's like waking up from a long dream and realizing the beauty of reality. Presence isn't just peaceful, it's transformative. When you're fully in the moment, you stop reacting out of fear or habit. You make choices based on what truly matters. You connect more deeply with others because you're no longer distracted by your own thoughts. Life stops feeling like a race and starts feeling like an adventure. The best part? You don't need to meditate for hours or retreat to a mountaintop to experience this. Presence is always available, right here, right now. All it takes is a willingness to pause, breathe, and notice. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. And before you know it, presence becomes your default state, a place of peace, clarity, and joy that no amount of inner chatter can take away. A practice, not perfection, building the habit. Let's get one thing straight. Quieting the inner voice isn't about achieving perfection. It's not about silencing your thoughts forever or becoming some Zen master who never gets distracted. It's about practice, showing up every day and trying, even if it's just for a moment, to step out of the noise and into the present. Think of it like training a puppy. At first, the puppy runs all over the place, barking and chewing on everything in sight. Your thoughts are the same, wild, untamed, and all over the place. But with patience and consistency, you can train the puppy to sit, stay, and walk calmly by your side. It's the same with your mind. The more you practice noticing your thoughts without reacting, the easier it becomes to let them go. Start small. Spend just a few minutes each day observing your thoughts. Don't judge them or try to stop them. Just watch. Imagine you're sitting by a river, watching leaves float by. Each thought is a leaf. You don't need to grab them or push them away. Just let them drift. Over time, you'll start to notice gaps between your thoughts, moments of silence, of stillness. These gaps are where the magic happens. They're where you begin to reconnect with your true self, the part of you that exists beyond the noise. And here's the beautiful thing. Every time you practice, no matter how small the effort, you're rewiring your brain. You're building a new habit, one that brings more peace, clarity, and freedom into your life. So don't worry about doing it perfectly. Just start. The shift doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. And every small step you take brings you closer to the life you've always deserved, one of peace, presence, and joy.